In a spotless white lab, microscopic patterns are etched onto a wafer thinner than a fingernail. Each one holds the power to control armies, economies, and even the future of artificial intelligence. But how did a tiny piece of silicon become the center of a trillion-dollar global conflict? Who truly controls the world's most important resource? This is the story of a new kind of war, one not fought with bombs or soldiers, but with code, trade laws, and nanometers. Advanced chips now sit at the heart of the rivalry between the United States and China. Global semiconductor market is almost equal to $1 trillion value 2024. Every phone, missile, car, and supercomputer depends on these chips. The more powerful they become, the more political they get. And in 2025, control over chip technology means control over tomorrow. It began in the 1970s when silicon chips transformed from lab experiments into the backbone of modern computing. The US dominated early innovation, with firms like Intel and Fairchild leading what became known as Silicon Valley. In the 1980s, Japan challenged US dominance with cheaper, efficient memory chips. Washington responded with tariffs and trade pressure, an early preview of how chips could become geopolitical weapons. By the 1990s, the center of manufacturing shifted to East Asia. South Korea's Samsung and Taiwan's TSMC built cutting-edge fabrication plants, or fabs, where the most complex chips on Earth were born. When China entered the tech race in the 2000s, it poured billions into homegrown chip design and manufacturing under state-backed. Then came 2022. The United States imposed sweeping export bans on advanced semiconductor technology. US issued sweeping export controls, banning advanced AI chips from reaching Chinese firms and blacklisting dozens of technology companies. The world's supply chain, once a symbol of global cooperation, became a battleground when both sides depend on the same chips to compete. According to Bloomberg, more than 90% of the world's most advanced chips are made in Taiwan by TSMC. US reports confirm China still imports over $300 billion worth of semiconductors each year. The US Chips and Science Act set aside over $50 billion to revive domestic manufacturing. Intel, TSMC, and Samsung have announced new plants in Arizona and Texas. These investments marked Washington's push to secure chip manufacturing at home, but across the Pacific, China was preparing a response. Meanwhile, Beijing launched its own fund, known as the Big Fund 3, to pour tens of billions into local chip makers like SMIC and Huawei. These moves signal a clear truth. Each side is building a parallel world of technology with walls instead of bridges. Not everyone agrees on how far this decoupling will go. Some analysts argue the controls are necessary to protect national security and slow AI military applications. Others warn that cutting off supply chains could damage global innovation and raise costs for consumers. There are also technical gaps. Even if China catches up in chip design, it still depends on foreign equipment from Dutch firm ASML to build 7nm chips, and the US faces its own hurdle: a shortage of skilled engineers and the sheer time required to build fabs that can cost $20 billion each. Can any nation really stand alone in a supply chain this global? Behind every policy decision are millions of workers. In Taiwan, technicians work night shifts in humidity-controlled rooms to maintain machines that never sleep. Their work keeps the world running. In the US, communities around new fabs in Arizona and Ohio see a boom in jobs and infrastructure, but also rising housing costs and environmental concerns from heavy water use. And in China, engineers and researchers are under pressure to achieve self-sufficiency. Many see this as a moment of national pride, others as a daunting race against physics and time. Think of chips as the engines of the digital age, tiny machines that convert electricity into thinking power. Without them, AI stops learning, cars stop driving, and economies slow down. One expert compared them to oil in the 20th century, a resource so critical that every nation must secure its supply. But unlike oil, chips aren't pumped from the ground. They're built with fragile alliances and atomic-scale precision, and that makes them both a symbol of human genius and a potential weak spot in our shared future. Nanometer equals 1/1000th of a meter. So far, we've seen how chips moved from labs to battlefields of policy. We know who's racing to control them, but we don't yet know what happens if the race never ends. Are we building the future or cornering ourselves in silicon? In the next few years, we may see three paths. If cooperation returns, new trade agreements could stabilize supply chains and push joint AI standards. If rivalry deepens, the world could split into two tech blocks, one built around the US, the other around China. Third possibility is technological breakthroughs in materials like graphene or quantum computing that could shift the balance entirely. In the end, the chip war is not just about machines. It's about how humanity chooses to build its future of intelligence, power, and trust.